Welcome, guys, to session number 2 of the Carnivore Evolution podcast, a podcast dedicated to help you on your health and fitness journey. Today's topic will be a controversial one. Today, we're going to talk all about carbohydrates. Are they needed? Do we need them in our diets? Should we rely on them? So I want you guys to kick back, relax, and let's get started. Victoria, how are you today?
I'm very well. Thank you, Mark. How are you?
I'm very, very well. So this is going to be a controversial topic. A lot of people are saying that we need carbohydrates.
Yes, we don't need carbohydrates. There's actually scientifically no such thing as an essential dietary carbohydrate because the liver makes them. We
Exactly.
don't
Yeah.
have to ingest them. We make our own from the other
Exactly.
food we eat.
Yeah. See, people don't realize that there's this word called gluconeogenesis. You can actually get all the sugar that you need from eating protein.
Yes, that's true. But there's also a catch-22 in just eating protein. You need a
Exactly.
little something else in your diet.
Yeah. Yeah. So take me back to when you thought that, okay, this can't be true. I used to eat carbohydrates, and when did you make the change?
I first actually heard about carbohydrates being not our best friend back in 1972 when Dr. Atkins' book first came out.
Mm.
And that's when I learned that if I cut back on carbohydrates, I could lose weight because the intention at that time was for it to be a weight loss diet.
Mm.
And Dr. Atkins was a cardiologist, and I'm sure he had in mind that it might be good for your overall health to lose weight. But he definitely proposed that we eliminate carbohydrates. But the concept behind this ketogenic diet goes way back to the 1800s when Dr. Salisbury was around and he invented the Salisbury steak, which is pretty much just ground minced beef
Mm.
and to eliminate carbohydrates from our diet, carbohydrates being starches and just about anything from plants. Certain fibers from plants carry carbohydrates too, and definitely grains are carbohydrates. But that was my introduction to eliminating them as being beneficial to my health and my weight maintenance.
Mm. Yeah, for me, it was always like, okay, why? When I was in a caloric deficit, I was always losing weight. I always got in shape very, very easy, but I always struggled to maintain that hunger, always. And I always used to have this. I used to always have these issues in my stomach, and I used to get tired on a regular basis. And I never understood why. And everybody kept on saying to me that carbohydrates are your main source of energy. But I used to have carbohydrates before I go to the gym. And before I go to the gym, I used to be exhausted. I used to have this heavy feeling in my stomach. I used to feel fatigued. It didn't give me any sort of energy whatsoever. And I was always questioning myself, is there something wrong with me, or what's going on? And it wasn't until I heard about keto and carnivore about 3 years ago. And I remember hearing people talk about not having any carbohydrates in your diet. And I was like, no, that's not right. You have to have some sort of energy. So we get energy from carbohydrates. And we were never taught about like the fats, that we can also get energy from fats. And I looked at it and I was like, no, but hang on a second. If I want to be in a caloric deficit, when we look at the model of carbohydrates, just when we look at 1 gram of carbohydrates, it equals to 4 calories. And then when we look at fats, it's like 1 gram equals to 9 calories. And that's what we all fell for. That's why when you look at most people talking about nowadays, people are saying like, no, it's all about calories in, it's all about calories out. But they don't understand the effects that these macronutrients have on the body. So going back to what I just mentioned, when I ate a lot of carbohydrates, I didn't feel good. I had a lot of inflammation. Whereas now that I'm eating fats, I feel so much better. I have more energy. I'm like, I don't crave as food as I used to. Whereas when I used to eat carbohydrates, I would eat literally every 2 hours. I wouldn't know when to stop. Whereas now, I don't need to eat every 2 hours. I can only eat probably 2 or 3 times a day, eat until I'm full, and that's it, I'm done.
Yeah, that reaction is related to a condition called insulin resistance. And I have read that it's estimated that 80% of the world's adult population, is insulin resistant. And what that means is when you have too much insulin present in the body cannot um, absorb it. It can't deal with it. And it tends to make one tired.
Mm.
And ironically, it also makes that tiredness tends to make you feel that you need to eat more. And what do you eat? You eat more carbohydrates. But insulin resistance leads to metabolic disease and weight gain. So
Yeah.
it's a vicious cycle. And even we're referencing back to Dr. Atkins, he talked about the carbohydrate cycle. When you eat carbohydrates, makes you want more carbohydrates because and it
Exactly.
makes you tired and gives you cravings for others. So
Yeah,
it's
and
really,
that's an important point, because this is something people need to understand how important insulin is when it comes to storing or losing fats. And this is why when we look at the calories, you should not be focusing too much on calories. You need to focus on hormones. Hormones are going to be the primary factor whether you burn or store fat. Now, if you've got a diet and it consists of a lot of sugars and carbohydrates, that's going to have an impact on insulin. And now, if insulin is increased, this is when you're going to see things happening. You're going to notice hunger. You're going to notice cravings. You're going to notice inflammation. You're going to notice weight gain. You're going to notice effects in your moods. You're going to notice dips in energy, nerve damage. The list is endless. So this is why we should not be focusing too much on calories when we're trying to lose weight. We should focus on our health and in particular our hormones.
yes. And ironically, insulin is a hormone,
Yeah.
and too much of it is overload on the body.
Mhm.
And it's definitely creating a crisis situation in your body that you are repeating day after day, hour after hour, as you continue to ingest carbohydrates.
And see, the problem is not with people. The problem is not with people when they're trying to lose weight and having all this discipline. The issue is the food that we're eating. Unfortunately, we live in a world now that all our food is completely and utter rubbish. It's most of it, about 90 to 95% of our food has hidden sugars. And when you look at sugar, there's around 40 different names of sugar. People just think that if I just look at the label and it has no sugar on it, I'm good. But people don't take into consideration sweeteners, dextrose, all this kind of stuff. These are all sorts of sugar also.
Yep. And natural flavorings now we've discovered are carried by maltodextrin, which is a form of sugar that's pretty strong.
Yeah,
We can't just dismiss it as a byproduct of sugar. So
exactly.
flavorings in your food also bring sugar, and they're hidden sugars because they don't register on the ingredients label.
Exactly. And when you think about it, when you have a meal with carbohydrates in it, you're never actually full. So, you know what I mean? If you have a bowl of spaghetti or a bowl of potato or whatever, or chips, you just don't know when to stop, because that's what they've done. They've made
Hmm.
these foods so powerful that you're able to eat more and you just cannot stop.
Yes, they're highly refined,
Yeah,
and that's that refinement that gets to you. If you were in the wild eating grains, it might not be so bad. Not that it would
exactly. Yeah. And when
eventually turn to sugar. But
Absolutely. When you look at what the food used to be like 100 years ago, let's say, for instance, for example, a piece of fruit. You look at a piece of fruit that was 100 years ago. It's completely different now. It's a lot more sweet. It's a lot more tasty. You know what I mean? When you look at a fruit that was a long, long time ago, you didn't have that effect.
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
You know what I
We
mean?
can't even recognize fruits from 100, 200 years ago. They've
Yeah.
been so overly engineered, bioengineered.
Yeah.
That's another problem.
And it's so sad to see, because I don't know about in your country, but in my country, if you go into a supermarket and you look at these packaged foods with protein like chicken and beef and turkey and all that, if you look at the back of it, it never says 100% protein. It says 90% protein, and then it has a list of all these ingredients. And if you look at the ingredients, the one ingredient that you always see in these foods is dextrose.
Yes, yes. And now they put flavorings in meat. I have seen that.
Yeah.
It's meat with natural flavorings. Well, there you go. There's your sugar. So someone somewhere in the big food industry, if we can call it that, has determined that you're not happy unless you get sugar in your food.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. And when we go back to what you were saying about hormones, this is why it's very that when you eat sugar, it's very hard to switch off that hunger hormone. So the whole point of when people want to go on a diet, the one factor people struggle with is they struggle with hunger. They can't understand why they have to be in a deficit, and they can't understand why they have to be miserable and why they have to struggle in order to lose weight. And then when they do lose the weight, it's very, very hard to maintain it. It's very, very hard to sustain it. And that's where people struggle. You should never be in a situation where where you feel miserable eating food. Never. And
Yes.
when people go on a restriction diet and they eliminate, let's say, carbohydrates, and they eliminate fats, and they just focus on proteins and vegetables, what's happening is they're not getting enough energy from these foods. So
Yeah.
these foods that are rich in like fiber, these are going to mess up your stomach. You're walking around bloated. You're walking around gassy. Then you're eating all this protein. That's all converting into sugar. Your
Yes,
energy
it
is
does.
getting your energy
Protein
is
will
getting
do that.
yeah. Then your energy is going down, and this is the reason why you feel miserable, and this is the reason why you can't stick to it.
Exactly.
You know what
Exactly.
I mean? So it's very, and then when we look at the insulin model as well, and we look at like say people with diabetes, we need to look at what's going to have the biggest impact on insulin in the blood. What macronutrient is it going to come from protein? No. Is it going to come from fats? No. It's going to come from carbohydrates. And when we look at the three macronutrients, there's only one that's non-essential, and that's carbohydrates. There is no research in any book or anything in the world that will tell you that carbohydrates are essential.
Yes,
The only two
exactly true.
macronutrients that are essential to the human body are essential amino acids. We get them from proteins. The next one is essential fatty acids. We need these for hormones. This is the reason why our hormones get tanked. This is the reason why they get just completely destroyed, because we're focusing too much on calories and we're not giving our body the right nutrients to thrive, instead of just focusing on calories all the time.
Yes, and animal fats specifically are important and essential because the cholesterol in the body has a competitor with plant oils. Plant oils will inhibit cholesterol from being taken up in the cells. And
Mm,
without cholesterol in the cells, you just really have no real healthy rebuilding of those cells. They just kind of limp along and try to take what saturated fats they can out of your plant oils. This is why we were told to eat plant oils for so long,
mm,
because it suppresses cholesterol, at least in testing. It causes it to be excreted or to be stored in the arteries as sticky components of plaque.
mm.
Now, if you eat plant oils, you're going to appear to have lower cholesterol and be healthier. And that's why we were told to do it for so long. But it's
Mm.
not necessarily true. Without cholesterol, you can't rebuild your cell walls very well. And
Yeah,
without your cell walls being rebuilt, they can't respond to their neurotransmitters. They don't know how to behave and they break down. And you end up with metabolic diseases
yeah,
that are simply breakdowns in the system of your body, the systems flow of your body.
yeah. And you know what? The perfect thing, the perfect How people can understand this a little bit easier is this. When we look around, nobody eats fats. Everybody is scared of cholesterol. Everybody's cholesterol is very, very low. Yet, when we look around, diseases are on the rise. They've been on the rise for the last 50 years. So if cholesterol is the problem, then why are people getting sicker every single year?
And fatter. Obesity is rampant. You can't go out in public and not be confronted constantly with obese people.
Yeah,
They're everywhere because
absolutely. And then
everyone is eating low
absolutely.
fat
And
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 high
then
carbohydrate.
absolutely. And then when your cholesterol is high, which is what it should be, you have our expert doctors that are saying, no, hang on a second, I need to put you on a statin to bring your cholesterol down. And that's making people even worse.
But it has no real impact on your health.
No,
Just anecdotally, my husband was on statins for 12 years and then he had a heart attack. Now,
crazy.
if 12 years and his cholesterol was 120, which is the American measurement of the low cholesterol. And ideally, any cardiologist would have said, "Oh, you're perfectly fine," and not anticipate that he would have that kind of reaction.
Mm.
But the statins are just not helpful, and I don't understand why they prescribe them because low cholesterol is not the answer to good metabolic health.
Yeah, and I always say to people, like, listen, do your own research. Like, just try it, give it a go. Like, I've heard from so many people in the last 2 years that, yes, my cholesterol is very, very high. Yes, my doctor is concerned. But when you ask these people, like, how do you feel? They're like, Mark, I feel fantastic. I have so much energy. I feel great. I've no more inflammation. I'm not tired anymore. Everything just feels really, really good. And I'm like, okay, well, you have nothing to worry about. Don't be worried about high cholesterol. High cholesterol is not the problem. It's low cholesterol that's the problem. It's the amount of sugar you're giving your body that's the problem. And when we look at our health sector, you can clearly see what the problem is. Because when these people go into these hospitals, what are they fed? They're fed sugar, literally carbohydrates. I remember this year I lost my mother-in-law to cancer. Um, and I remember going into the hospital, and I remember looking at her diet. She was having jelly and ice cream. She was having potatoes. She was having like crisps, all this food. And I was like, hang on a second, like this woman has cancer. You guys are meant to be looking after her. Why are you feeding her sugar? And I actually went into the doctor and I said to her, I actually asked him this. I said, why are you feeding this woman sugar when she has cancer? And he was like, well, that's what he needs to be eating. And I was like, no, do you not think do you not think sugar actually drives to what these diseases? And
We know that.
he turned around and said to me, no, there's no truth in this whatsoever.
Uh,
And then I said to him, do you not think this woman should be on a high fat diet? And he was like, why would I put this woman on a high fat diet? Do you want to kill this woman? And I was like, oh my God.
yeah.
I couldn't believe it. I could not believe that these are the people that we look up to, and this is the advice that being given. And people just need to understand that when it comes to these people, doctors, they are trained in the medical field. They are not trained in nutrition. And this is what's going to heal most people. You're not going to be healed with medication. Medication is going to be like a band-aid to most people's problems, but it's not going to fix the problem.
Yeah, but they don't try it. And they've known, at least since the late 1920s, that there is a direct relationship between ingestion of sugar and the acceleration of cancer growth in the body. And we've
Exactly.
known that. It's not some kind of theory that we just pulled out of the air here.
Yeah.
And it's essential information that they just suppress. They don't want to know. I don't know. I don't understand why the obvious isn't apparent to them that
Yeah. And see that.
chemotherapy and medication isn't
And,
working.
li- and like you said, Victoria, most people think that these diseases just come along for no reason.
Yeah, or they're hereditary.
Yeah. But then
Not.
when you look at the diet, you can clearly see what the problem is.
Oh yeah, but they don't look at the diet, and I will never understand that. And people think, well, because they eat and they're still alive, everything's okay. Let's just focus on something else. But no, it is the food you ingest that has every bit of impact on your health and
100%. Okay.
repercussions.
Okay. So let's focus on now the next controversial topic, and that's carbohydrates around training.
Ah, yeah,
So a
everybody.
lot of people will think that, okay, if I'm training in the gym, I need to have carbohydrates. I cannot go to the gym without carbohydrates. What's your opinion on this?
Well, I've known personally, it just carbohydrates tire me out. So I don't see, I've not been a professional athlete, but at least at my level, I know that I can't have carbohydrates and go work out because I'm just going to conk out after a while. I won't have enough energy to complete my rounds of muscle resistance or do anything related to cardio. So yes, I know that it's for me personally, it doesn't work. But that whole carbohydrate loading thing is kind of a mythology that has
Mm.
persisted. And because maybe it gives some people, younger people who aren't insulin resistant, it might give them a little extra energy.
Yeah, see, the problem is with a lot of people that are in the gym, especially in the gym, especially males, is they need the carbohydrates because they think they're actually building more muscle, like they're gaining more size. And
No,
to a degree, yes, you are gaining more size, but you're not gaining more muscle. That's the
and
problem.
not muscle, it's fat
Yeah,
you're gaining. Yeah.
exactly. It's more water. So when you have carbohydrates, we need to understand this. For every 1 gram of carbohydrate that you eat, you're storing between 3 and 4 grams of water
Yes.
weight. So
Yes.
that's what you're doing. You're filling the muscle up with water. That's how people, when they come off the carbohydrates, they lose that size very, very quickly because they're losing all that water weight. People
Yes.
need to be, people need to be told and they need to understand that when it comes to building muscle takes a long, long time. Like realistically, you can probably gain between 5 to 6 pounds of pure lean muscle a year. That's how realistic this is. But people think that if I just eat carbohydrates and in 2 months later I've gained all this size, yes, you've gained this size, but you've also gained a lot of water along the way.
Hmm. Now, I
You know,
think modern athletes now have come to understand that protein is the key to bulking up, if that's what you want to do, and not
when
the
yeah,
carbohydrate.
absolutely. When we look at building muscle, there's only four things that you need pretty much. You need protein to build muscle. That's what we need. We need protein. That's the building block of building muscle. The next thing you need is you need a stimulus. So that stimulus can come from weight training, strength training, some sort of stimulus on the muscle. That's what we need. The next thing we need then is recovery, rest, because the muscle is not going to grow unless we rest it. And then the last thing we need to focus on is just water. That's it. You don't need anything else. You don't need fiber. You don't need carbohydrates. You don't need all these energy drinks. You don't need all these protein drinks. You don't need all these protein bars. If you stick to those four things, weight training, give your body adequate protein, give your body some fats for energy, give your body well rested sleep and focus on recovery and give your body and keep your body hydrated. You're going to build muscle. It's as simple as that.
Yeah, that's great.
That's
Great
that's how
advice.
the body that's how it works. But the reality is, if you're putting in too much carbohydrates in the body, you will not gain too much muscle. You're going to gain size, and there's a big, big difference.
Yes, and that won't benefit you at all in your athletic pursuits.
And this is how people get injured. They get injured in the gym. They get this arthritis. They walk around
Mhm.
inflamed. They don't understand why they're getting injured regularly because their body's inflamed.
Yeah,
There's a reason
unfortunately.
why their body's holding on to too much water. And the body you should never be in a position where you're storing all this water.
Yeah, water and fat.
Like
Go together.
people will always argue that yes, if you remove the carbohydrates, you're going to lose the weight. But my argument is this: why should we hold this water in the first place?
Yeah,
Like,
that's
why do we need to hold all this? Why do we need to walk around with all this excess water in our bodies?
Yes, and it shows on our body, and people don't view obesity, the actual condition of obesity, where you have excess flesh and
Hmm.
flab, if you want to call it.
Yeah,
That
yeah.
is your red flag. That's your sign that you are carrying too much water and fat in your body.
Hmm.
And I'm not here to body shame people, but we shouldn't normalize that condition because it is the marker of poor health. And
Absolutely.
it's just going to degenerate into a worse condition in terms of metabolic health.
And what about runners? You'll see all these people that are doing the marathons and they're doing the cross country. They're doing all these endurance events, and they'll be saying like, "Listen, no, if I'm going for a run, if I'm going for a marathon, I have to have carbohydrates. It's absolutely
Not
essential."
necessarily true anymore. We have several athletic runners who
Mm,
know that they can go on meat and protein, fat and protein.
mm. And see, the problem is with these runners, they don't understand that the reason why they're running out of energy very, very quickly is because of the carbohydrates. That's the reason why they have to keep on taking these energy gels every 30 minutes, every
Yes,
six.
they have to
For the,
replenish it. Yeah.
exactly. But what happens is if your body taps into its own body fats, you can actually use that as fuel and energy.
Yes, you have that resource right there, and you don't have to bring in the artificials.
Yeah. When you look at people that do fasting, for example, people think that okay, if I fast, it's gonna help me drop weight. The problem is when people do fast, they struggle because they're hungry on a regular basis. They really
Mhm.
struggle. They're like, oh my God, I have to eat now. I cannot wait to eat. And this is how people end up having a bad relationship with food, and they end up having these food disorders. Because I remember when I used to have carbohydrates, as I said earlier, I'd have to eat every 2 hours. Whereas now, because I'm fat adapted, I could probably go for nearly a full day fasting, and I wouldn't have any issues with hunger whatsoever.
Yeah.
And I think that's the big difference.
What one interesting thing about the carnivore diet is it's been called a fasting mimicking diet. And it gives you all the benefits that are perceived from fasting, such as being in ketogenesis, ketosis, being in ketosis, and also having a clean gut that you don't have to starve yourself to achieve
Exactly.
on the carnivore diet. And
Exactly.
it's not putting your body into crisis mode to do that. You're getting nutrition, you're getting fluids, you're getting protein and fat, and you're going to be a lot more stabilized and not get cravings and get into an adverse reaction to not eating.
And what do you feel people need to know about carbohydrates? Because I don't think enough people understand what a carbohydrate is. So, how would you determine what a carbohydrate actually is?
Well, just about anything that converts to sugar in the body, and the body will do that. So, most foods, that are based on grains and starches and plants will convert to a sugar in the body,
Mm.
whereas meat and fat convert our protein, or as you said, the amino acids and the fatty acids. But starting in the mouth, something that is grain based or plant based will convert to sugar. And that continues, that process of conversion to sugar continues throughout the digestive system until it gets to your liver, and your liver goes, ah, there you are. And it puts it in the sugar box, and it
Mm.
knows that you've got sugar from those foods. So, yes, if you can separate out your meat and your fats from just about anything else you can ingest, and that is usually a plant based item, that
Mm.
you're getting sugar from those things. And sugar is the key component.
Yeah, and this includes all the healthy food, guys. So when you think about it, like you'll hear a lot of people think that if you eat rice, if you eat oats, if you eat sweet potatoes, these are all healthy foods. Yes, they're healthy foods, but they also contain carbohydrates. And like Victoria says, when you have a carbohydrate, any kind of carbohydrate, once it's ingested and you chew it down and it goes into the body, these foods are going to send a signal to your brain, telling your brain, like, listen, I haven't had enough. I want more of this. I'm actually enjoying this. I want more of it. I can't, and that ghrelin hormone is never switched off. And that's the problem. This is the reason why you're getting hungry. When you, like, if someone's listening to this, I'll give you a little, I want you guys to do this for me. Next time you're having a steak, have the steak on its own. Don't eat anything else with it. Let me just eat it on its own. Make sure it has fat on it. Let me know how you feel. Are you full? Now, the next day, I want you to eat that steak again, but this time I want you to eat it with a baked potato. I guarantee you'll be able to finish that steak and that baked potato very, very quickly, and you'll still be hungry.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yes.
that's the reason why all carbohydrates will break down into sugar. Every single one of them. Don't be, when you listen to people and telling you that these foods are healthy, don't get too fixed up. Don't get too fixated on that. Focus on what it actually does to the body. If you guys are walking around bloated, you're having digestive issues. If you guys have an intolerance to food, let's say you have a gluten allergy, stuff like that. Focus mainly on the carbohydrate component first. Remove the grains, remove the carbohydrates, and I can promise you, you may not have a gluten free, and you may not have a gluten intolerance. You may be just intolerant to carbohydrates,
Yes. Very true.
and you need to. That's what's going to be the problem. And if you're on a weight loss journey, guys, take my word for this. It'll be a lot easier if you just remove the carbohydrates. You'll actually achieve your goal a lot easier and a lot faster if you just remove the carbohydrates. And when you hear people saying that it's not sustainable, my advice to you is just try it. It will literally change your life. It changed my life. I cannot believe how good I feel since I've removed them out of my diet.
Yes. Hunger is no longer an issue.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, is there anything else you want to discuss on the carbohydrates, Victoria? Or do you want to finish it
No,
up?
that's pretty comprehensive coverage.
I think we touched pretty much every topic, every part there.
Yeah. Well, thank you.
So, guys, if you enjoyed our podcast, send us a like or a share. You can also send us a message saying if we're doing well or not, and if there's any topics you guys want to listen to, or if there's any questions that you guys want us to answer, you can always reach out to myself or Victoria. Victoria, what's your Instagram handle?
My Instagram is, it's too long to remember. Um,
Or even your Facebook
Vic,
page? What's your
if
Facebook?
my Facebook is, Victoria Olson.
And if you guys want to reach out to me, mine is Fitness Beyond Time 01. We'll always answer your questions, no problems whatsoever. And myself and Victoria are going to try and do one or two of these a week. We're going to try and cover every single topic that you guys are listening to at the moment on social media. Give our insights of these topics. We're going to also get some guests on, and we're also going to do some testimonials in the next couple of weeks also. So,
Yes.
Victoria, thanks very much for coming on today,
My
and I
pleasure,
look
Mark.
forward to
Thank
speaking
you.
to you very, very soon.
Okay. Bye bye now.